What is happening, super fans? You're listening to Behind the Mask, the show where we chat with your favorite superhero fiction authors about the worlds and the heroes that they are writing. Behind the Mask is brought to you by superherofiction.com, the world's largest website dedicated to superhero fiction. I am your host, Franklin Kendrick, and today on the show, from all the way across the pond, I am excited to be chatting with superhero fiction author Lana Pecherczyk. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Franklin. Hi, everyone. How are you? It's great to be here.
It
I'm up nice and
is.
early. It's about 7 a.m. over here, and I'm having my coffee, and it's stinking hot. I've just put the aircon on to the cooling system. I don't know what you guys are always getting teased by my American friends about the terminology, but yeah, I've just put the aircon on to cool us down, and I'm all good, all set to go.
So it is the dead of winter here now, so we're probably all really jealous that you're using an air conditioner.
We are, and even where I am in Perth, we're quite sunny. We're like the sunshine state, they call it here. So it's kind of like San Diego or something, you know. It's very California-y, and there's a lot of sun. There's not, even in winter, it doesn't get cold. There's never any snow. It's not one of those kind of places. I know. It's not humid. It's just perfect, just right, Goldilocks.
Oh, sounds amazing. Well, let me ask you my first question, which is when you are not a superhero fiction author behind the keyboard in beautiful weather, sunniness, writing your superhero stories, who are you out in the real world? Do you have a secret identity?
Yeah, so in Australia, I have two preteen boys who keep me on my toes. They are very sporty, so I have a lot of parental responsibilities going on during the day. My husband is fly in, fly out. We call him FIFO here. So he's here half the time, 1 week on, 1 week off. So he works away, sort of thing. So yeah, it gets very hectic around my house at times. But yeah, so that's basically me. I also, before I was writing, I had one of these kind of, I guess it's like all writers. We do a lot of other things before we finally cave and become a writer. For me, I did everything from fine art to fashion design to marketing. I even studied philosophy at one point because
Oh, wow.
I just didn't think that I could be a writer. I mumble a lot and I don't talk that well, and you know, and I didn't realize that, yeah, you know, that's what editors are for and all this stuff, and it's a craft like anything else. And you know, finally, I think I was reading an article by another author who was kind of like me. She was an artist most of her life, and then finally she was sick and tired of working, yeah, in the art industry, and just went, you know, just because I'm good at something doesn't mean it's what's going to fulfill me for the rest of my life. And it just really struck a chord with me, and I thought, yeah, you know, I've been dreaming about writing and have stories going on in my head since I was a little girl. I even remember having, sorry, I think I've just jumped into the second question here, I've realized.
That's fine. As long as I get the info out of you, I'm happy.
Yes. I remember when I think it was in 7th grade, and there was an award that everyone got at the end of the year, and somebody else got the writing award and I got the art award, and I was so jealous and dark. And I remember just shooting daggers at this person across the room and going, how dare you get this award? I don't want this art award. I know I'm good at art. I don't want it. And ever since then, I think that's what really kind of made me think, you know, I'll never be good enough to be a writer, sort of thing. So it took a long time. And I only started writing after I had my first child, and everyone else in my life was in a different period in their life to me, and I was kind of left behind. And I thought, well, if I'm not going to do it now, when am I going to do it? And just jumped straight in and started doing it. And it takes a while. It's taken years when I think about it. 8 years or something now I've been doing it for, but yeah,
Everybody
8 years.
starts at zero,
Yeah.
basically. Like
Yeah.
you figure out, everyone goes through that phase of like, I feel like they have their favorite writers that they've read everything, and so like, even my old stuff, I'll be like, wow, I really was trying to copy various authors to like learn the craft. So all my stuff sounds like a mishmash of like what I'm trying to do, but then eventually like the good parts that you've learned stick, and then like your author voice is finally like, it becomes consistent, and then like you're where you want to be, basically.
Yeah, and I know they always say just throw that first book in the drawer, and I should have, but mine are published. we just leave them up there, so it looks like I've got a great backlist, but they're not too bad, and but you do learn, like you said, you come into your own after. I think I've written 15 books now.
Wow.
Yeah, something like that, but yeah, they get easier. The first one took me like 3 years to write, and I think I drafted it 11 times, and that I write one in 3 months now. So
yeah, you condense a whole year into a month. Just like pretty good.
And I've learned that the reason I have to write it so fast is because I have one of those brains that I get so distracted by the new shiny thing, and I want to add so many more things to my story that it can get overwritten and crazy and doesn't make sense by the end of it. So I have to write it in a like binge writing, otherwise it's one of those it just doesn't make sense. So and you can also draw it on for 3 years. So but don't give myself a deadline.
The temptation to add things is so strong sometimes that you just have to, if anyone out there is listening and you're thinking about getting into writing, or maybe you are into writing, don't try to throw everything you've got into your work in progress, because sometimes the things that you really want, that you're like, I should do this, you can always use them in your next one, and then that enthusiasm will carry you through. So
and readers are voracious. Readers are voracious. They want more and more and more. So
so never
keep feeding the beast.
Don't think that it's just one book and you're done. You'll be doing this forever, just like everyone else.
Forever.
Well, speaking about writing, we talked about how you got into like the big leap into actually writing your first couple books. What got you into, or what enticed you into writing superhero fiction?
Superheroes are awesome. I've always, as soon as, I don't know, how can you explain the awesomeness of them? I never got, okay, start again. In Australia, we don't get as many great things as our big, great American cousins. And I'm so jealous now of all the opportunities that our children and our teens have growing up, and all the cosplay, opportunities and all this stuff. I mean, it kind of was here when I was growing up. I'm going to be 41 soon, so it was a bit of a while ago. And the internet was just born when I was a teenager. We had the little chat rooms with the little,
like AOL, old school.
I remember with some teenage friends, let's pretend we're a boy. We're going to call my name. My name is Brick, and we just make up something. And that was the extent of our fun on the internet. But it's exploded now. And so for one of us to embrace our singular lone fandom and go out and dress up, and it was really hard to find others who were into the same things that we were. And so you kind of held on to it a lot on your own. And when I grew up and it all started becoming a big thing and all the movies started coming out, I just really started, getting excited and embracing it all. And I would go to every single movie, and I kind of missed the comics by that stage. I was already a bit older, but I was reading so much, I was devouring fiction. And that's when I kind of thought, why isn't there enough superhero fiction? It just didn't make sense to me that it was so popular in comics and so popular in movies, but the actual written form, the big chunky books where you can really immerse yourself into it, just wasn't really a thing. And I still don't understand why it's not going through the roof. But I just thought, as a writer, I came up with a great story idea, and I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the risk and take the plunge and immerse myself in this world, which I think is part of the reason why a lot of writers do write these stories, is they want to extend their stay in this world that they create, Yeah, I forgot why we started this question. This is what I do all the time.
That's fine.
Why? You have to keep reminding me.
I will say jumping off of what you said about how the at least in the mainstream, superhero fiction still hasn't gone very far. I think before indie publishing really became a viable thing, I only really encountered superhero fiction through like novelization, like adaptations of movies. Like I think I had like the Spider-Man 2 like novel based off the script.
Yeah.
And then I had like there was one or two I had like Superman die, like the death of Superman, where they had just like turned it into a novel. And that was like it.
Yeah.
There was nothing else really. So
it's kind of like fun. I don't want to relive that same thing that I did. I want to extend it and grow it and do more with that world. And it's a little bit sad that people weren't really willing to take a risk and invest in it, because the market was there. And
oh yeah,
I think and I've worked in publishing in all these things that I did before I was a writer. I worked in a bookstore in the marketing department for a while, and I did learn a lot about how publishers work with bookstores. And they sink a lot of money into some authors who they believe can sell. So 6 figures they can spend on publicity and plus more. So if they put that money behind something like this, then surely it's going to it's kind of like social validation. If some people are saying, yeah, this is great, this is more, and everyone's going to jump on board and start doing it. That's the hope anyway.
Oh
yes. If we all do it,
yes,
we'll make it great.
It's like it's the same thing as the quote unquote overnight success. There will be eventually, I'm sure, an overnight superhero fiction like tsunami where everyone says, wow, this just came out of nowhere, but then everyone that has been writing it will say, we've been doing this for years. What?
Yep. Yep. I have a lot of my readers are like, oh, I've never read this, because I'm romance first, so a lot of them will read other romance and then they'll jump into these and they'll say, oh, I've never read superhero romance before, but and I'm like, yes.
Oh yes. Yes.
Gotcha.
That's how it works. That's how they get you.
Yeah. You're in. Yeah.
So give me sort of an overview of your superhero romance novels. What are they? Is there like an overall name that they rest under? And maybe what are they all about?
This is the hardest question to ever ask an author. It seems so easy, but to ask it, so it's called The Deadly Seven. And I suppose it came about when I was just, somebody said something about the 7 deadly sins once, and I was like, oh, imagine if it wasn't, if I mixed those words up, and it just wasn't 7 deadly sins, but the deadly 7. And then, if it was 7 people who were deadly, but imagine if they weren't just deadly, it was tied to the deadly sins, and each of them could battle a sin and sense a deadly sin. And then I thought, imagine if it was because this world that we live in today is just getting more selfish and more greedy and more everything. Sin is just exploding. And that's basically the premise of the novella. I did one. It's called Sinner.
There we go.
So they're genetically modified, these kids, in this one, and they can all sense sin, but they can also they'll get a superpower that gets triggered when they meet somebody who embodies their sins opposing virtue. So they need a balance, someone to balance them out. And I did that because I thought, once you have something like that, like a balance, then you can flip it, and then you can tip the balance, and then you can create tension, and then you can have drama and all sorts of things, conflict, everything going on. So basically it revolves around this family. The novella is 30 years ago, when the adoptive parents, one is actually an assassin pretending to be a nun. Another is a guy who works in there, and they realize that there's these kids being tested on, and in this lab, and the nun is actually supposed to kill them because they're predicted to destroy the world, and she thinks no, they could save it. So she rescues them, and 30 years down the track, that's when the real story starts, and each book focuses on one of the family, and goes on, and the big baddie is just the person basically who created them in the first place. And as all supervillains go, he gets more fanatical and more trying to eradicate sin in the world, and things like that. And it's nice to play with that kind of good and evil, and who's got the right to do that, to say what I love the idea of playing with how bad humans can really be, and and get really gritty that way as well. I don't know if that,
because especially for a time spanning sort of series, like there are things that would have been seen as like wrong as you go through the decades. It like slowly becomes more accepted as people are more like open-minded and educated, or they've experienced more. So it's like there's a whole lot more bad than like 30 years ago. So I think that's interesting too.
Yeah, and the baddies get worse because the Deadly 7 was this guy's plan A to take over the world, and and to stop sin and create a utopia sort of thing. And then when that gets taken away from him 30 years ago, he starts creating plan B and plan C and all this other stuff. So they're not only fighting sin from the general population and just trying to stop general greed and general, bank robberies and things like that, but they're also trying to stop this plan B and plan C from this supervillain dude who's just a twisted individual, I think. Yeah, it's lots of fun to play with as well. Yeah. But I do the romance because I've always wanted to write about, as the podcast name suggests, behind the mask. Every time I watched, and this is because I am purely a romance reader, but I love my action and I love all that stuff as well. I wanted, you get just a tiny touch of romance in all these superhero movies, but the romance is always there, and I thought, well, fighting crime and all this stuff that has a big toll on romance and on relationship. It's not easy. It's a big part of your life, and there's always going to be, you know, lots of different things that happen from it. So I'd love to write more about that and to extend that world, you know, and explore all of that as well.
Absolutely.
So that's why I write all the romance parts.
So speaking about the romance aspect, so for your heroes, is there a new couple each book?
Yes. Yep. So there's because I had a theory going into this, because not only is superhero fiction not that popular, or not that, you know, it's not huge. Because I wanted, you know, I want more people to read it, you know, as well. I thought, well, how would I get more people to read it? What kind of romance genre, subgenre fits this style of writing more? And it was paranormal romance, which you know, you've got your vampires and your werewolves and things like that. So I thought, well, what kind of style of writing do they do? And they do it, a lot of them do the separate couple in each book. So I picked some, you know, similar processes. What's the word? I can't think of it. Let's just say similar style of book, and ran with that. And it was a different couple every book, which suited me well for the family, and to explore the family dynamic and have a different different couple. And so it's got an overarching story that kind of grows as the story goes on, but you can pick up a book randomly and get a satisfying story arc within each one, because each couple has their own story. Yeah, so it's kind of multi-layered, I guess.
Cool. Well, I would say a lot of romance that I've read, they love to like cameo characters all throughout, where I'll think, okay, I know that that's not just a random time they walk through this restaurant and say hi. Like, I know there's going to be a book about them, and then I'm always like so happy when it actually does. Like, oh, they finally got to that character, and now I can know why they were fighting with that person in the back of that restaurant.
Yeah, because sometimes it seems random and like, why? Who is this person? What are you doing here? Just get out. Yeah, there's always a reason.
Yeah, if they're given a name and they speak, then you know.
Yeah. Oh, there's a joke with romance writers. If you give any guy anywhere a name, the readers will want them to have their own side book. So just be careful.
Yeah, but, do you have to have a list of if you mention anybody, that way you don't get caught off guard when someone says, where is this person's book?
Yes, yeah. Oh, it's crazy. I'm kind of lucky with this one that the family was tight knit, and so I had to try. There was a lot of family dynamics that because they were the crime fighting team was a Deadly Seven, so they were always cameoing in every single book, and I just had to keep the right characters coming in and out, you know. So if they hadn't had a book yet, I tried to bring them in more often, and the ones that had a book, I would only bring them in just a little bit, just to give the readers, you know, just a little bit of something nice and fluffy sort of thing.
Yeah. I have another question about, because I'm curious. So for each new character that is for each book, do they all start out with their powers at the beginning? Like, have they all gotten them all in one giant at the same exact time? They all have their powers, or do some of them get them in each book?
So they get them as soon as they meet the person, the balanced person. Basically, you know how I was talking about trying to make it fit with a paranormal genre. There's a trope there called fated mate. So the idea is that there's one person out there who's your soulmate. It's preordained. It's destined. You don't have a choice. They're perfect, but they're perfect for you, sort of thing. You know, a lot of people fight against it, but in the end, you love each other. Blah 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 blah. All that stuff. It's great. So that's essentially the idea, is that these, you know, whoever these people are, whether they're tortured souls, they don't think anyone's going to love them ever. They meet this person, and it unlocks their powers because they become unstable once they're, I'll start again. When they're exposed to sin in my book, they can have too much sin in their system or not enough. So either way, the balance, if it's too much and not enough, they can have blackouts. And when they black out, they go into a berserker rage and they kill anyone they sense sin off, anyone nearby. They'll just go crazy trying to eliminate that sin. And this is something that their supervillain programmed into them as children, and something that their biological mother, who was the lead geneticist, she blocked basically underneath this trigger. She said, no, I'm not going to let this your power come out, because then you'll be, you know, unstoppable basically, unless you meet this person who can balance you out. And so once they get into an orbit with their balance, their sin resets in their system, so they're kind of naturally balanced, so they can live normally and control themselves. They can control their powers, and everything's great. But you know, so they don't get their powers until they meet this person. So it just kind of made a little bit more the romance side of it, you know, a little bit more meaningful as well. And
Yes.
Another reason why this person needs to be in their life is, apart from falling in love, as if that's not enough. It's never enough in these kind of superhero things. It's always life or death. Okay.
So how do you balance out? So you mentioned earlier that the main villain is the person in control, who designed them. So, because I've been researching some romance writing stuff, so for my own personal interest. So for romances, villains is like a different thing. Like somebody told me, like the romance in a romance always comes first before like a grand plot. So how do you balance like these heroes, and then also are there like super battles and all that jazz like they traditionally you'd see in a superhero like blockbuster or like other fiction that is in the genre?
So with all my books in the because they're all romance, they always have each of the characters, the male and the female, or the hero and the heroine, or whoever you've got, two protagonists, they're always dealing with some emotional issue. So you know, at the start, they, you know how they always say their viewpoint of the world is a little bit skewed. They've got something that they believe in, but it's not necessarily true. And these problems, the other person is going to help them overcome. So, and for the Deadly Seven, it was really quite easy for me. So, Gluttony is dealing with, he's a movie star. So that was his secret identity. It was my fun character. He was dealing with gluttony. He was dealing with a substance abuse problem. So he had alcohol and other stuff, and he was a recovering addict. And so that was something he was dealing with. And the woman he was meeting embodied temperance. So she was like, you know, she was ex-CIA. She was like, but I flipped it, making that she was so good at saying no to things, and because she had a situation where when she was younger, she was drinking and she had a car accident. I think a friend of hers died because of a mistake that she had. So she used that mistake for the rest of her life to remind herself not to drink anymore. And so she, they kind of help each other in that way, and that's something that they deal with at the same time as the baddie popping in and out, and the overarching story getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And with this book, I have the syndicate. I call them the syndicate, the deadly sins. I thought that was clever. Authors do all these things. It's great. So in this story, I had another failed experiment, another B plan or a C plan that the syndicate had thrown out into the world was this plant monster, basically. So it had gotten loose, so it was like in drains and sewer systems and popping out at the most inopportune times, and and that kind of all comes to a head at the end, and then the whole family has to get in to save the public during a screening of his latest movie and all this stuff. Plant monster bursts through the screen and all this stuff. And so it's that all kind of happens, but there's always a part of the bigger plan revealed by the syndicate. So what was the question again?
You basically answered it. I was just
the emotional journey. So that's what I focus on, the emotional journey first, and then I usually plan that part first, and then once I've got that, then I work out, okay, well, now I know what they're going to be struggling with internally through all this. What's the big baddie doing to make this worse?
I feel like that's like a great way to work, because I think one of the things that a lot of writers struggle with, and like I struggle with it, is like pinpointing like what is your theme. And because whether you like it or not, the theme is sort of, when it's done really well, like as an audience member, I notice it. But it's comforting because you see how all of it just like the whole story just flows through whatever your theme is. And then working with like in the romance genre as you're doing, I mean, you have it built in, so you know what your two characters are dealing with. Then it's probably a much simpler to figure out like what is the villain going to also throw into this. Whereas if you're not writing, well, I guess it applies even if you are writing romance and you aren't picking out a theme. But like, I know for me, I'm always like, what is this story really about other than the characters fighting each other and then trying to figure out what they want? So
and before I started this, I did my first series was urban fantasy, and I was like, theme, no one wants theme. That was the hardest thing to write, and I just ignored it and just wrote the story. But the theme for, like you said, the theme for each book was easier for this one because they all involved around a sin. So Wrath, he was an angry person, and he had some tragedy had happened to him, and he'd been betrayed by someone closest to him, and he was just an angry person. And so he had to get over that. And of course, the person he was with was this sunshiny, bright, bubbly character who was just this complete opposite. And you kind of just work through each book like that, and when you really think about all the best superhero comics and movies that you love, there are the ones that deal with the characters' inner turmoil as well as the big baddie that's going on. So I mean, my favorite is the Christian Bale Batman. That's my favorite out of all of them, because he's just so tortured, and he's got a lot going on there. And even the superhero, the newer superhero ones, I liked the family behind that and the relationships that they build, and I've always loved the Superman story.
Oh yeah,
I always watch
because
them. I haven't watched the new one yet because in Australia we get everything late.
oh my goodness, you're talking about the Superman and Lois.
Yeah,
I
is it
I
any
have
good?
I will be honest, I sneakily was able to watch like 20 minutes of it on like my lunch. And then I was like, okay,
Oh,
yeah, I'm gonna watch the rest of
the
this.
rest, and that's it. Because I love the girl that she was on Grimm.
Hmm.
She's one of my favorite actresses. I loved her. She's always great. And the dude was like on the werewolf show. I forget what that's called.
Oh
Teen Wolf.
yeah. Oh, Teen Wolf, yeah.
Yeah,
You
I saw
know,
him popping in and out on Supergirl.
mhm. I was
Mm.
very like Superman to me is like a character that whoever is gonna play him, they really have to like prove themselves to me. And I
Mm.
think that he's done a good job of like stepping into it, and but he feels fresh, not just like
Yeah.
visually because he's not
Mm.
like a hulking massive person, but I'm like
Yeah.
he brings something different to it, which I'm glad. So
Yeah. I'm ready to, that's the thing, I'm ready to deep dive into the emotional side of it. And I
mhm.
really hope that this story will bring that to us
Oh
because
yeah,
it's a different, they're not starting us at the start of the Lois and Clark journey, are they?
no.
So I'm
No,
interested to
they're
see what,
throwing you in. They're throwing you
yeah.
into like they have a family and
What?
yeah.
Little
Yeah.
baby Superman?
I know, really.
I
As
love this.
when
This
you
is
because
great.
when you boil it down, a lot of these superhero stories, like you can say, I mean, the superhero part can represent lots of different things, but I always look at it as balancing like a work life. Like
Yeah.
you feel responsible, like you it's like not for them, it's not just a job that you go to. Like a lot of us have jobs where we just go do it and we're like then we clock out. But like these poor heroes are clocking in all the time. And then
Mm-hmm.
if they decide I don't want to do this today, like a bus full of children like falls off of a bridge or something. So there's like a
Yeah.
moral side to it. So it's very like you can boil it down to like the simple thing where you ask yourself like what would I do in like would I just walk away and have to tell myself like no I don't care about these strangers, or would you put on the cape and the mask and go do it and then
Yeah.
hopefully not anger your family that that's all you end up doing.
Yeah. There's actually one character in my book. She's Lust. She does Lust. She's a detective, a city detective.
Ooh.
The whole shtick with her is at the start she gets a lot of shit from her family. Sorry, I said this word again. She
You're fine.
she because she doesn't get in costume with the rest of her family and go out and at night time and fight crime. She does it as a cop.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, there's plenty of stuff I can do at street level. I don't feel like I need to be doing it with you guys. And yeah, so she, when it comes to her book, she's struggling with what side, who needs the most help, where does she help? But then of course she gets her powers and she shoots toxins from her hands and her mouth. So she realizes it's not a power she can hide sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it comes out in yellow smoke when she's freaking out or her emotions are high and stressed and strained. So she's forced to deal with the fact that, you know, she can't be two people, one person. She has to, you know, kind of pick a side and try, like you
Ah,
said, that balance. So it's definitely a great tool to play with as a writer. You know, what if it was you and you were living this life, and what if,
mhm.
you know, suddenly you had to pick between, because yeah, you might not get a choice. You might have to pick one. Having a
Yeah.
family might not be something you get, sort of thing. which is
Oh
probably
yeah,
why a lot of superheroes are very tortured souls.
they're very tortured. Poor,
This is what
poor.
draws romance writers and readers to them.
Yeah,
They
and I
love the
mean
tortured
it
souls.
lends itself so well because there's like the nice trope in romance where it's sort of like the Beauty and the Beast, where I feel like a lot
Hmm.
of the tortured superheroes, they're like the beasts of the
Hmm.
superhero romance genre, and they need
Yeah.
someone to come in and be like, we'll lighten you up. We'll drag you
Yeah.
back from the
Yeah.
like the edge of the cliff.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I wanted this balance with my heroes. But at the same time, I didn't want them all to be boys and the girls to be the one who balance them out and lighten them up. I
Mhm.
had like my city cop detective. She's this foul mouth, badass girl who's just tough as nails. And
Mhm.
the guy she ends up with is an FBI kind of um, special crimes kind of guy. But and then there's another girl who's a hacker, who's part of the family, and she's like a gamer girl. She's sloth, so she just sits there
Oh,
gaming half the time, but she's really good at her job. So she actually had a lot of mental health issues to deal with as well, because she had to get over, if she needed to fight crime, to get over the fact that she just want to sit down all day sometimes, because that was the sin if she was too, you know, too
relatable.
exposed to it. Yeah, it's very relatable. So, but yeah, I thought it was definitely important that I didn't have too much of one side there, and it was for everyone.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Well, let me ask you about the world that these characters all live in. Can you give us sort of an like tour? Is it a completely fictional world, or is it based in our real world? How did you create it?
So, as you may know, I am Australian. Our population here in the whole country is probably about the size of New York. So the things just happen over there is just expanded exponentially to what's here. And I thought I can't accurately do it in an American city without stepping on someone's toes or doing it wrong, or something. I've never been there, and it's not fair for me to do it. But I knew that I couldn't do it here because we're just not big enough, for the kind of end of the world scenario I was planning.
Mhm.
So I made up a place.
It's like the
I made up a
easiest.
place. Yeah, it was easy. Writers love this, and I called it Cardinal City because it kind of felt,
Ooh.
yeah, similar. And then I made it um, shaped like the bird cardinal, a cardinal bird, and I made it like let's see if I could show it on camera if everyone can see it. This is my map. You can see the
Ooh, yeah.
the bird, and at the top end, we've got the bottom end. Is all the slums and stuff, and the shit end, the tail end of the bird, they say, or the slums, the shitty end. And then you've got the heart, the quadrant is where, all the action happens, the fashion district, and you've got all the shops and, all the action and the living quarters. And so most of it happens, in this city. Basically, I do go in and out occasionally because I can't have the whole series just inside one city when they're trying to take over a world. But
Mhm.
but this is where the headquarters is. So you kind of got to just, suspend your disbelief a little bit, because in reality, if it's a world organization that's trying to take over the world, it wouldn't all happen in one place. But that's the way superhero stuff is done. So I thought, if I did it too broadly around the world, it would ruin a bit of that family dynamic that happens.
Mhm.
And I needed to keep it all in one place. So it's not that exciting in terms of a different world. It's much like our own, a little bit grittier, a little bit dirtier, but lots of crime, crime's going down at the moment. I've got 2 books left to write in the series, and then at the start of the series, the family is basically disbanded because of a tragedy that had happened. And so the crime is back to really bad, but now the family is back together. It's all kind of getting better. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So
I
pretty
like
boring.
I like the well, I think it could be refreshing, really, because we see so much like globe hopping where it's like, the whole world is at stake. But really, even if it is, I mean, your characters come from a specific place on the globe. So
yeah, and I think as well, my characters and my villains are quite crazy. So if I throw in a crazy world, then it's just too much for everyone to, plus with romance, you've got the emotional aspect going on as well, and the dramas of that. So you can't have too much going on, otherwise it just becomes a nightmare to read.
Oh yes, yeah. Sometimes simpler is better. Yeah, I agree, and I relate as a reader. When it gets too convoluted, that's when my brain just is like, I don't even want to continue.
What's going on? Yeah, I mean, in the movies, all that action and sparks and magic is great, but yeah.
Oh my god, yeah. Putting it on the page is a total. You can't have a full book of just fights or just action, or even just your characters constantly arguing with each other over whatever.
Even my fights, I never go into a battle or a fight in my book unless someone's got something to lose. So even the villains have something to lose in my books. They don't just start fighting, or 90% of the time. Occasionally you get like crazy genetically modified animals, but they're sent by somebody who's got something to lose, But the characters who are battling them are going through something, and if they die, then that's the end of their relationship and whatever's going on and things like that. But if they're battling the villain, it's usually something that one of them, so you kind of, I think there's more stakes involved, when one of the two, you don't know who to root for sometimes, or at least you feel a little bit of sympathy for the bad guy.
That's the best way, because you want them to like your villain at least a little.
Yeah.
So what are some things that inspired you when you were sort of coming up with, and even maybe while you're still working on this superhero series?
So I cannot watch a movie or a TV show without having a notebook by my side, or at least my phone. And sometimes I feel so sad that I've ruined it for myself, because I'll just, oh, that's a great idea, and you keep a note of your favorite things, whether it's just sometimes you go back to your notebook, you're just like, oh, I just wrote one line, assassins, that's it, or walls. I think I was watching Game of Thrones and I realized I really like the idea of walls and I just wrote walls. But you kind of, you guys got to keep an idea of things that really inspire you, because when you're writing and it becomes a job and you got to keep writing, and you get to parts of books and they get so boring, you think, I've got to add something that excites me, and when it excites you as a writer, it's going to excite your readers. So you need to keep that joy alive. So I'll keep watching. I read a lot of romance. I don't read a lot of superhero romance. That makes sense. There's not too many of us out there.
There's not a whole lot.
Not yet.
Not yet. But hey, there's always, because who knows? I look at it as writing takes a while, especially if it's
Mhm.
somebody who is new to writing in such a like specific part of the romance genre as superhero romance. So who knows if there's somebody right this minute working on like a grand 5-book series that all of a sudden will just like
Mm.
come out and we'll be like,
Yep.
where did this come from? When was
Yeah.
this person doing it? But it's not exactly like you're not going to follow anybody until they arrive. So
Mhm.
I like to think that there's
Mm.
like a bunch of people that are just like getting ready to pounce the genre and like
Yeah.
unleash. So it
I
may get
hope so.
bigger. Yeah.
I hope so. I think the more we talk about it, the more we put our stuff out, you know. And after my Deadly Seven series, I'm branching out into a spin-off series. So and and I'm growing this one. This is less superhero. This is more assassin nuns, demon hunting nuns. But going back to the original nun 30 years ago in my sinner book, who was they called sinners. So that's why it's titled sinners. They're sanctioned sinners of the church. Basically, they're
Ooh.
the assassins who get to go around doing the bidding of their female-run organization called the Hildegard Sisterhood. So these sinners basically go around doing stuff. But I thought, wouldn't it be great to make it instead of the Deadly Sevens, more, you know, Avengers style superhero, make it more Constantine style superhero.
Mm.
So I thought, oh, I'm going to do that next. Yes.
Ooh. I would read that because I when you say the assassin nuns, I'm just
Yeah.
imagining all the action that could possibly happen. I just
Yeah, and because they're sinners, they're not real nuns. They're allowed to
no.
do everything that normal nuns aren't allowed to do. So they're kind of like ostracized by all the other nuns, and they're like, "Ugh, you're going to hell anyway," and all this stuff. So I thought this is a lot of fun to play with.
Ooh. I think that
Mm.
sounds great. Because
Yeah,
man, it's like West Side Story, but with like the good nuns and the bad nuns.
dude, but wait till you hear this. They're because this is the female side. This is the girls have run this because there's a lot of research. There was a nun called Sister Hildegard or something. That's what I'm basing the girls off. She was a female, well, of course, a female, a nun, a male nun, no, a female, a female, a nun who would get visions from God and all this stuff. And so she had her own abbey, her own nunnery, and that's where I kind of splintered that off and thought, oh, imagine if she started her own underground secret society. And then I thought, well, of course the Vatican would have their own. And I
Oh
thought,
yeah.
well, maybe they don't call their assassins sinners, but they raise them up to be saints. And I thought, you know, so their guys are like revered, their killers are revered as saints, and then so you're gonna have the boys as saints and the girls as sinners,
Ooh.
and then they're gonna have to merge. There'll be a merger because suddenly demons are real and they're going to have to
Oh,
join forces to save the world. That's basically the
I
premise.
I'm here for that.
Yeah,
I'll be ready for those. Of
and there'll be romance thrown in because I don't do anything without that. But
course.
why not? Of course.
Well, with that as a lead-in, how
Hmm.
do you have a favorite plot line that you have written, or do you have a twist that you have come up with that maybe when it came to you you had to like immediately write it down, or something that shocked you that is one of your favorites from your books?
I kind of do, and if you read the novella, it'll be a spoiler, but it's kind of not a spoiler once, you know, I mean, you can kind of see because it's going to be the eighth book basically in the series. It's so a lot of people guess it in the first one, and by the
Mhm.
time the first book comes out, you kind of realize what's happening and stuff. But when I was researching the seven deadly sins, because writers don't just go, "Hey, I'm just going to call this is 7 deadly sins and make them fight envy. You know, we research and we go down deep rabbit holes of, you know, oh, what sort of things did the church use to battle envy and blah, blah. Apparently they threw people into snake pits and weird stuff. And I didn't use any of that, but I researched it. And I found out that apparently there was an 8th forgotten sin, which was called despair. And I was like, imagine if they had a forgotten sibling who was left behind, you know. So throughout the series, this has been my tension building. She is the one that they couldn't save, basically. And so she's the villain for most of the book.
Oh, wow.
And she'll get her own book at the end. But honestly, I haven't decided how hers is going to end. It is a romance. I am a romance author, so you would think I would write a happy ending, but I don't know. Can I do that to my readers? I don't know.
Could be a sort of happy for now, maybe, possibly.
Who knows? Right now, she's like being tortured and all this stuff, devastating stuff. So
I have a friend who writes stuff that she doesn't really publish anything, but she tells me her story sometimes. And like, she writes the most tortured characters that I've probably ever. And I'm just like, how in the world do you put your poor characters through this? And how do you come up with these things? And she is just like, I don't know, it just comes to me. And then the more I read, the more I'm like, yeah, we're going to throw that at them. So.
And, you know, every time you start to go, and when I first started writing, I thought, oh, that's too contrived. Nobody's going to do that to somebody. And the more you write and the more you read and the more you watch TV and the more you watch the news, you're like, this stuff happens. This is real life. Why do I feel like, you know, this doesn't happen? It does. So I'm going to, you know, make it worse in my book.
Yeah. Well, truth is, it's a corny saying, but I feel like it's true. It's like reality, truth is like stranger than fiction. So like anything that we come up with, even in like far distant history, I feel like we'll find things that we're shocked. And it's like, oh, I guess I didn't do the most terrible thing to my poor characters in the world. So
yeah, it's scary, really. But going back to the things that I like and my list of things I like, strangely enough, it's all those horrible torture things. And you're like, they're the things that, you know, not necessarily that you like, but that have you on the edge of your seat. And you're going, why, what about this is making me want to wait to see what happens next and how are they going to resolve this? And, you know, and then if you don't feel fulfilled afterwards, why? And how would you do it differently and things like that?
Yeah, it's kind of like the fascination of like watching a train wreck happen or watching some sort of disaster. I feel like as humans, we're just like programmed to be like spectators to like crazy things that it's like there's no real reason, there's no sensible reason why you'd be like, I'm gonna watch the news footage of like a train crash, but you're just like, even when you're like, I shouldn't watch this, you're like drawn to it because of the drama of it. So
I've always this might be a writer thing, I don't know, but you know, you always imagine it as well, like what would happen, you know, what would happen if this, you know, the end of the world or this happened, or I always dreamed about it too, if the sun blew up and the sun, we're all hopping from shade spot to shade spot, weird random stuff in your dreams. But you know, it's all because you know that we're living a kind of Goldilocks life right now, you know, and if something happened and the scales got tipped and we're suddenly not, you know, the pandemic. Funny story. My latest series is a post-apocalyptic fantasy series, and it happens 2,000 years after a nuclear fallout. It was I just finished writing the first draft and I was ready to send it to the editor when the pandemic hit, and originally it wasn't a fallout, it was a pandemic. And I was like, oh, I think it's too early for that because I released pretty fast.
Yeah.
So
There,
yeah.
there was a weird time. There was a weird window of
Yeah.
time at the beginning where like prepper, like apocalypse fiction,
Mm,
people were reading it as like
mm,
just to see how, I mean, I don't know why they were reading
yeah.
it because like The Stand like was all of a sudden a
Yeah.
bestseller again. And I was just
Yeah.
like, oh boy, while I'm busy reading things to escape, other people are like, yeah, let's deep dive
Yeah.
into
And that's it. And I was like, I'm not sure if I leave it in there, is it just gonna tank? Or if people are gonna go,
Mhm.
yeah, this is great, or am I gonna get some strange people that are just gonna, and I thought, oh, I'll just change it for now and
Yeah,
you
you can
know.
always do it again in the future.
Yeah, exactly. But I've always been fascinated by viruses and you know
Oh
all
yeah.
those all those movies where they drill into ice cores and they bring out something from deep below and it's a vampire
Oh
risen strain or
yes.
zombie strain or something.
Ugh, yeah. Yep. I've watched those too. More of
Sorry.
my morbid fascination.
Yeah, that's going on the list.
Oh yes. So
Uh,
do for this series specifically, you said you have two more books that you're gonna do. Do you
mhm.
have do you have a like estimate of when the next one will be coming out?
Yeah, I write 4 books a year. So I had Yeah. So Pride is the next one coming out. He's coming out in I like to talk about my books as in people. I say he or she and spend so much time with them. So Pride is coming out in July, end of
Ooh.
July, and he's book 7. And then Despair, which is the big final one, which everything will be resolved and you know, I still don't know myself what's going to happen. I kind of have an idea of how they're going to defeat the baddie, but in terms of the personal stakes that's going to happen, I don't know. I'm not going to make them wait too long. I'll probably have that coming out early next year, and then that
Mhm.
series is going to be done.
Cool. So for the next one, Pride, is there something that you can tease for people who have already read all the way through and are like anxiously waiting for the next few months?
Um, I can't. I don't think without giving away spoilers.
You may possibly
Yeah,
expect to see.
yeah. It's going to be a rescue mission one, and because this guy Pride, obviously, he's the leader of the crew. He's leader of the family. He thought the eldest until Despair came along, and in the last book, she sacrificed herself to save the family. So he has to get over his big head basically in this one. And he'll be launching a rescue mission to save his sister. So that's definitely going to
Ooh.
happen. But what kind of sister he finds is going to be unknown.
Ooh. Well, for
Yeah.
everybody who is waiting, uh, get out your Kindle highlighted notes for the previous ones and do your
Yeah.
speculating.
Yeah. I'll tell my readers, so I'm gonna come and watch all this now and go, what? Oh my
Yeah,
god.
but yeah, I'm a big fan of like teases and like I love to speculate on like future. There's just something about an ongoing series of stories where like I'll go back and reread ones that I love, but I always include this question because I'm the type of person who I love the feeling of like these stories are like ongoing and they're like happening like alongside us, which is why I also
Yeah.
love like weekly television, even though a lot of people think I'm crazy when you could just binge
Yeah.
something. But like I love the ongoing, like wondering what's gonna happen next. So
Yeah. I love that too. And as long as I've got a TV show to watch every night,
mhm.
if it's a different TV show, I'm okay waiting.
Oh
Um,
yes.
yeah, I can say about this book that the Hildegard Sisterhood, the Sinners, are coming back. So,
Ooh.
and they haven't been around since their nun defected to rescue them 30 years ago. So, and it's kind
Oh.
of been hanging over the family all this time, thinking that these sinners are going to come and kill them all for their defection. So,
Mhm.
and they finally caught up basically. So they are coming back, and there's going to be a lot of dramas coming at them from all sides.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Exciting.
So on the flip side, if somebody is brand new listening and they have not read any of this series, would you recommend they start with the prequel, or would
Yes,
you?
and that's free. So that's permanently free on Amazon. You can also get it when you join my mailing list at my website. Yeah, so but it's easy to just get it on Kindle. You can just
Mhm. And then
guess
it's
it spelling
there.
my name and it
Well,
probably will come up.
I also finally like that. I don't know if I'm just late to the party or not, but on most of the Kindle stuff now, they've started allowing you after all these years to have a series of books like nested within each other. So if you have them all downloaded, you can just click on it
Yeah,
and be like, oh yeah, this is the series, instead of just like
yeah,
scrolling through and searching for the various
yeah,
titles. So,
yeah. They've just started that too.
oh,
I think they've just started it. It did surprise me when I downloaded one. I went to my Kindle one day and I was like, it brought up an old book, and I was like,
mhm.
no, but where's the new one that I just got? And I started
Yeah,
freaking out, going, where is it? And I found it. Of course, it was behind the other one, so
yeah.
it's all okay.
It's like, don't keep me from my
Yeah.
entertainment.
Yes, yes.
Oh goodness.
Prices are burden.
Yes. So that, I mean, it's a good for anybody listening, like I love prequel novellas just because it's not a huge commitment. So if you're new to superhero romance, you can like give it a shot. And I mean, it's like a bite-sized sort of,
Yeah,
well, depending on how long it is. Because there are a couple of
yeah,
series that I've recently started where I was really happy when they had like a little prequel where I was like, oh yes, perfect. I can read this in like an evening and just be like, yes or no. And like most times I'm like, yeah, we're gonna download the rest of these. So
yeah. Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people do. Is download that first one and give it a taster and see if they
mhm.
like it, and move on from there. And I think I put a sample of the first book in the back of it as well, so you can move on and see if you want to read the rest of them as well. And they're all in Kindle Unlimited too. So if you've got Kindle Unlimited, you can just borrow them and binge through them
Yes.
that way. Yeah, I
Oh
know. I
yes.
love Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah.
I know. As authors, we're supposed to be like, oh, you don't get paid as much and all this stuff. But you know, when you really love something, you often go back and you buy them, or you know,
Mhm.
or you'll get
Oh
the
yeah.
print one, or you
Oh
become a super
yes.
fan, and all this other stuff. So
Absolutely. As a consumer and as a read, like I've read for my whole life. I
mm,
can't tell you the number of times I have bought different editions of a book that I've
mm,
already owned for
yeah,
years.
hmm,
So the Kindle Unlimited doesn't really scare me so much from a creating standpoint because really I sometimes you're just like I have subscription fatigue and I know that I'm going to
hmm,
want to reread these books over and over. So then you do just go back and be like, yep, I'll just buy them. They're in my library forever. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I do for this reason because I do my own covers as well. I
Oh,
with I, s- I do two different covers for my fantasy series, because with romance, there's got to be a man chest in some of them, you know. But I also really wanted to have a dude in like his battle gear and stuff. So I had that on a separate edition. So I've got a lot of readers that would just buy both of them because, you know, you've got to have both the covers.
Oh yes,
And then
it's
I've
like
got
variant
special
covers.
editions. Yeah. And now I really want to do like simple black and white illustrations and special editions inside. I've seen some
Ooh.
hardbacks come out like that, and I'm like, oh, I like that idea, you know, because I do little sketches, you know,
Oh
sometimes
yeah.
just to get it out of my head as well. And I thought, oh, if I do that while I'm writing, then at the end I can just slot them into the book.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
like that. That's something that I
Mm,
don't see a whole lot of yet in the indie world is
mm,
like limited special edition type like re-releases. Like a lot of people will change their covers up just for marketing, but I think
yeah.
that would be fun to sort of see some like
Yeah.
maybe like more beautiful artworky versions.
Yeah. And I think I'm like, on one hand, while I was really, you know, I kind of get really bitter about the fact that I spent so much time ignoring that writing part of me. All that time I spent cultivating the art side and everything else that I use to indie publish now. So I don't pay anyone to do my covers, and I can illustrate, and people pay
Hmm.
me to do their book covers and things. So I
Yeah.
thought, oh, it's definitely something that I, you know, that I use. Nothing has been lost. So
Oh
it's all
yes.
worked out in the end.
Yeah, the skill like it's exactly like you say. You never know when the
Mm,
skills are going to be useful. And plus it being able to do your own covers and having that experience, I mean it makes it even more like your own vision as opposed
mm,
to having to try to
yeah.
explain to somebody like here's what I want. Like you wrote the book, you also know
Yeah.
what you want for the cover.
So
So,
easy to just, and I do it in one hit, and
oh wow.
it's so easy to just put it out and go, yep, that's exactly what I was imagining because it came
Wow.
straight from my head. But when I do other covers for other people, you know, you're often going backwards and forwardsing, you know,
Mhm.
the word forwardsing. I don't know. But yeah. I'm a writer.
Yeah, well, I love that. That's awesome.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
I'm near the end of my questions, so I
Mhm.
have one more for you, which is if is there anything that I have not touched upon that you would like to throw out there into the world, into the internet?
I think just if you are listening, and how Franklin and I were talking about earlier, if you're thinking about writing and for whatever reason you haven't taken the plunge yet, definitely do it, because do it and don't linger too long in that first book. Just get it done, move on to the next one and the next one and the next one. It's it's yeah, that's it. Just
Mhm.
do it. Nike. Oh, Nike.
Oh yeah, because
Yeah.
you will see the progress that you make, not in the day to day, but when
Mm,
you go back and reread some of your earlier stuff, you will see that like there is a big difference from
mm,
when you start that first book and then whether or not you publish it or not, if it goes in your
yeah,
drawer or your USB drive. But like you will notice that you have grown as you have gone along. So don't be
yeah,
don't be scared. Do it.
yeah. And the writing community is huge. I was so surprised when I started and I put my feelers out, and I think it was on Twitter first. And I'm not really on there anymore, but you know, it was, you know, I just couldn't believe how many people were writing, and I was
Mhm,
like, compared to how many books were being published back then, you know, it's just thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are writing. So
mhm.
you're not alone. Get out there and give it a go. We need
Yes.
more. Mm.
Oh yes. Do it on your phone while you're standing in line for something.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Write notes. always keep a phone or a book next to you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent advice. Well, before I wrap it up, where can readers find you and where can they find your books?
Online at my website, which is lanapecherczyk.com. It's obviously hard to spell. If you just guess my name, I think Google just brings me up in the suggestions these days. Or on Instagram, Lana_P_author. And on, I think I'm mainly there, and Facebook, of course. I've also got a reader group on Facebook. We're quite active and we chat a lot, have a lot of fun.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Franklin.
Yes, you are. Well, thank you for being on, and thank you, with the time zone difference and everything, thank you for making it all work, because I was very excited when I saw your name pop up.
Yeah. I've been meaning to do it for a while, and it's hard being so far away here, but I'm glad you guys can work out the time zone differences as well.
Oh,
I love
yes. Yes. Well, I'm sure it will not be the last time that me or the listeners see you out there. So, you readers,
I hope
listeners,
to come over to America, as soon as everything sorts itself out. I'm definitely planning a trip. 95% of my readers are in America, I think. So
you have to come to some sort of convention or something.
Yeah,
because that'll be awesome.
It's been a dream of mine. Like before I said, I just always wanted to, Sailor Moon is my jam. And
Oh my goodness.
I used to do fan art of Sailor Moon growing up, she was my person. And I always wanted to go to these things and dress up, and now I'm probably too old, but I still want to go to these conventions.
Never too old. And I believe me, everybody that I know is just like fingers crossed, like waiting the time until we can all do it, because it's such a missed thing, but it will come back, I'm sure.
Yes.
Because there's too many fans that want to get dressed up and come out and like show off what they are doing. So
yeah, all these crazy creations will start coming out. Everything people have been working on, I think, and it will be excellent. I can't wait.
Oh yes. Well, I will wrap this one up. Thank you so much again for being on. If you like Behind the Mask, be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on our future episodes. As always, I just want to thank everyone listening so much for tuning in. I appreciate you all, whether you are new or old to the podcast, and I will see you all next time.